After a break of 4 years from the screen, Judy Garland was set to make her big comeback in the splashy musical film A Star is Born, which was a remake of the 1937 film of the same title. While it looked good on paper, the production had descended into chaos. Jack Warner of Warner Brothers had thrown curveballs at the cast and crew by making them switch to the newly invented and successful CinemaScope, causing reshoots. Dissatisfaction with sequences and color also caused more reshoots, and this was on top of rewrites of the script, which was dangerously long in length. Cukor, the director, was taking his time meticulously shooting shots, and Garland's habit of being late to set, or not showing up at all, only exacerbated the aforementioned matters. The production was riddled with drama and issues from day one, and it was only going to get worse. Hello there. Welcome to Movie Musical Mania, the channel devoted to sharing a slice of musical cinema with the world. Please like and subscribe for more content like this. This is part 2 on my essay on 1954's A Star is Born. Today we'll talk about the dramatic final months of shooting, the forced born in a trunk sequence, and, of course, the film being torn apart in the editing room. Click above if you want to see how we got to this point. I would again like to credit this book by Ronald Haver. It's come to my attention I mispronounced his name in the last video, as being the backbone of this video essay, as well as this copy of the original script, which will come in handy when talking about the sequences that were cut from the film. Let's get into it! Production had been going along since October, but not without plenty of hiccups along the way. At the end of January, production was 29 days behind, and Earl Bellamy, the AD, had to leave to work on another picture. Russ Llewellyn took his place. Meanwhile, Michael Sidney Luft, producer and Judy Garland's husband, went behind the backs of Moss Hart the screenwriter and George Cukor, the director. Luft had the dialogue scene immediately after The Man That Got Away shortened by another writer. Both Cukor and Hart were enraged by this shortened scene, which seemed to take all the character out of the moment, but Luft felt that the scene dragged on for far too long. Upon filming on February 18th, Cukor found a solution that kept the entire dialogue scene intact. Esther and Norman, instead of staying static, would move from the restaurant to the parking lot, to the car. The Man That Got Away was again reshot at this time, without the busy action that Hart wanted cut, and with a new dress by Jean-Louis. The prominent colors in the sequence this time were red and blue, and this was the version that made the final cut. A Star is Born was costing the studio over $4 million, which was the most expensive movie Warner Brothers had ever produced. In short, Warner Brothers had a lot of money riding on this, and to recoup investments, they would need to be able to play to foreign markets. Unfortunately, David O. Selznick, who was behind the 1937 film version, held these exclusive rights and would not release them to Warner. Epperson, Luft, and Garland were making the picture, thinking they had all the rights, including for an exhibition, but the fact of the matter was simple. They didn't, and that was an entire market they were cut off from. While films no doubt make the bulk of their profit domestically, foreign markets can be a vital part of income. 2 musical numbers and some retakes were all that was left to shoot. Another director was brought in to film the Lose That Long Face sequence without Garland's approval. When she arrived on set and found out, she was so upset she ran from the studio in a rush of tears. She only agreed to come back and do the number if Cukor would be behind the camera. They brought Cukor back, but then the production got a real taste of the reputation Judy had created for herself. She would come in briefly but went home ill, or not show at all. Cukor said, "Sometimes she'd come in for an hour and then leave, because she was absolutely exhausted, then go straight to the races. She abandoned all pretense of reporting to work on time. Finally, the studio got fed up with having the cast and crew sitting around twiddling their thumbs, all being paid, mark you. So they worked out a system whereby they would call Judy at 8:30 in the morning. She would tell them if she was coming in. But eventually, she stopped picking up the phone. With Judy wasting everybody's time, they tried to finish the number with a stand-in doing the choreography, but it was too noticeable and the footage couldn't be used. They were kept at a standstill waiting for Judy Garland. They occasionally shot filler with James Mason driving to and from locations, like in and out of the studio, which wouldn't necessarily be used in the picture, but in the eyes of Jack Warner, it made them all look like they were working. A rough cut of the film was assembled, and despite Garland sporadically showing up to set, Warner ordered 5 more reshoots of dramatic scenes involving Garland to be reshot starting April 13th. The last dramatic, non-musical scene was, ironically, the first scene that had been shot, Esther sitting in the train car, waving out the window. The Lose That Long Face number was finally finished, and production was almost complete. James Mason left to go work on Disney's 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. The only thing that was left to film was the musical number that served as Vicky's film premiere, which would prove she was a big star. Arlen and Gershwin had written 3 songs for that moment: I'm Off the Downbeat, Green Light Ahead, and Dancing Partner, but all 3 of them were deemed unsatisfactory at showing the audience why Vicky would become a fan favorite overnight. MGM songwriter Roger Edens, a longtime collaborator of Garland, offered another number for the moment, a 4 or 5 minute production number titled Born in a Trunk, about a young actress climbing the showbiz ladder. Garland really liked the idea, and for some reason, Warner approved it and granted them an additional $250,000 to the budget. Irene Sheriff was hired to design the costumes for this sequence, hoping to recreate the success she had achieved with An American in Paris. That's right, she was the 3rd costume designer for this picture. Shooting commenced on June 30th. Garland, excited about the number and in the home stretch of the picture, missed shooting days less frequently and was reportedly happy, if only a little exhausted. The sequence is very tailored to her talents. I mean, just look in the screenplay. It doesn't even say Esther anymore, it says Judy. The production wrapped on July 28th, following retakes of the Peanut Vendor song. The film was complete. It only needed to be edited. Hart, Luft, Warner, and Cukor had all expressed fears of the movie running too long, and they all had different ideas of what needed to be done. So let's begin the dramatic saga of the editing stage of A Star is Born. Hart asked permission to view the film and suggest edits, but Warner took matters into his own hands and made some cuts here and there before the film was first previewed on August 2nd in Huntington Park, LA. Cukor wrote in a letter to Hart afterwards, "It was at the previews that I saw for the first time the cuts that Jack Warner had wrought. I won't go into detail about how heavy a hand he used, how inept and insensitive, because you might rupture another disc. He snipped here and there, seemingly without reason. He cut completely the scene in the car from the Downbeat Club to Esther's motel. The meaning of her shampooing her hair and of his hitting golf balls was lost." Cukor, enraged by Warner's treatment, took matters into his own hands. He went on to say in the letter that the audience's reaction to the picture informed him of moments that needed to be cut or sped up. He cut about 12 minutes from the picture after this preview. These scenes were Norman searching for his hidden keys and finding them in the jar containing his manservant's false teeth, Norman going back to the Shrine Auditorium and asking after the identity of Esther, Esther packing up and leaving Oleander Springs, Esther auditioning for a job at a nightclub, Esther washing her hair in the rooming house that Maine finds her at, one number from the Born in a Trunk sequence titled When My Sugar Walks Down the Street, where she replaced her mother in the performing pair, Norman and Esther having a picnic on the Malibu beach, planning their future home, and Esther singing a version of It's a New World, Norman as a swashbuckling pirate on the set of a movie, the beginning of the Academy Award sequence, which cut out the actress Amanda Blake's part. She was still credited in the picture, which was probably an editing oversight. The movie was ready for exhibition, but there was still one major issue. Warner didn't have the rights to show the movie in certain foreign territories. Selznick did. But Warner decided to sweep that under the rug and just worry about the premiere for now. The LA premiere was set for September 29th. All of Hollywood was abuzz and excited for the Garland comeback film. Both the Hollywood and NY premieres were big events with TV cameras and searchlights, and 2 New York theaters were rented out. And fortunately, the reviews of the film were glowing. Despite praise for the acting, designs, use of color and cinemascope, and the screenplay, one major criticism was the film's length. Running 3 hours and 2 minutes, it was considered too long. For A Star is Born to recoup its $5 million price tag, which was the second most expensive film of the day, second only to Duel in the Sun from 1946, it would have to gross over $10 million. To meet this demand, the movie would have to be played several times a day, sometimes without intermission, and in all major cities, and shortened. Less runtime equals more showings in a day. Henry Warner, Jack's older brother, ordered him to cut the picture down, behind Cukor's back. The following 27 minutes of film were removed from the picture following the premiere. Maine being led to the car and driven away to location shooting, Esther washing her hair and laying by a swimming pool, Maine on a boat for location filming, Oliver Niles talking with Maine's director on the phone, Esther at the rooming house getting a phone call about a singing job, Esther singing the Trinidad coconut oil shampoo song for a commercial, Esther at a burger stand working as a waitress, Maine at Oleander Arms looking for Esther, Maine and Lola seeing Esther's TV commercial, Maine finding Esther on the roof of the rooming house, Esther and Maine driving to the preview of her first picture, the recording session where Mayne proposes to Esther, the entire Lose That Long Face number, the reprise of Lose That Long Face number with Esther drying her tears. These cuts, some of which were important sequences, felt like a betrayal to Hart, Luft, and Garland. Liza Minnelli, Judy Garland's daughter, remembered her mother coming home after hearing the news about the cuts and sobbing, "They just don't care. They just don't care." Cukor was angered by the way that they just hacked into it. It was very painful. Some terribly funny and touching scenes were taken out that were crucial. If they thought it was too long, there were other ways of shortening it besides chopping and hacking out vital bits. They were defenseless. Due to the contract Luft and Epperson and Warner had signed, Warner Brothers had the right to cut the film however it pleased once it had been previewed. But the public noticed, and many people were not happy with the post-release changes. Variety wrote, "The film suffers noticeably by the fade-outs where it is obvious that a musical number has been dropped, to say nothing of dialogue, which is now meaningless because it refers to earlier scenes which have been indiscriminately scissored. Contemptuous regard for the public interest." As for my opinion, there's no doubt the film needed to be shortened, but cutting the entirety of the Lose That Long Face number really lessens the impact of Esther breaking down. Ultimately, the willy-nilly editing was not what the creators intended. And also, if any sequence needed to be scissored down, it's the 15-minute Born in a Trunk sequence. The existing full-version prints were sent to Warner's film offices and cut to the shortened length. Even the Warner Brothers master copy was shortened and all excess film was thrown away and put through a silver reclamation process. The longer version of A Star is Born was no more. Audiences felt cheated. They were buying tickets for this movie at the same price, but they knew that the film was missing almost a whole half hour of footage. Box office receipts after the first 2 months were not looking good. Garland was better known amongst adult audiences, not the youth demographic, and the drama over the recutting only hurt the film. It grossed $4.3 million, a loss of nearly $2 million on production costs, not counting distribution and advertising. In result, Warner's called off the picture deal with Epperson and Luft. In late 1955, once the film had run its course, Selznick finally released the foreign distribution rights. But it was too late. To fit into a 2-hour TV time slot with commercials, the movie was trimmed down even shorter to 1 hour and 40 minutes. Despite the recutting and financial instability, the film was nominated well at the Oscars. It received nominations for Garland and Mason both, and the film was nominated for Best Art Direction, Song, Scoring, and Costume Design. Garland's chance at the Oscar was looking good, despite tough competition. Audrey Hepburn for Sabrina, Grace Kelly for The Country Girl, Dorothy Dandridge for Carmen Jones, and Jane Wyman for Magnificent Obsession. Look awarded Garland for Best Female Performance of the Year, and the public, excited for her comeback, generally considered her the favorite. The ceremony was to be held on March 30th, 1955. Judy Garland gave birth to her son Joey on March 29th, the day before. And this is where we came in at the beginning.
Grace Kelly for The Country Girl.
The camera crew that had barged into the room so suddenly packed up and left, disappointed. Later, Garland received this famous telegram. "Dear Judy, this is the biggest robbery since Brinks." She made light of it afterwards, but it must have felt like a slap in the face. Everyone had expected her to win, but somehow she hadn't. She had put her heart and soul into her comeback, a picture that was not being appreciated. It was failing to gross back its investment, and it did not win a single Academy Award. While we will never know why she didn't win, perhaps it was due to the way the picture was cut. Cukor was convinced this cost Judy the Oscar. It could also be because she received much press about having a temper, erratic behavior, and a reliance on drugs. Simply put, she was hard to work with. People talk, as does everyone in the filmmaking world of Hollywood. Had Grace Kelly had a better performance that year? I don't know. But Judy Garland's image, just like the film she had starred in, might have started to seem, as Ronald Haver put succinctly, overdone, overrated, and exhausting. A Star is Born was Judy Garland's last film as a major movie star. There would be more movies, but she mainly stuck to concerts and a CBS television show. While Judy Garland had a reputation of causing delays, this video essay should have shown pretty clearly that others were just as responsible. Jack Warner caused reshoots due to his sudden switch to CinemaScope. Cukor was a perfectionist who required many takes, and many people, such as the costume designers, the assistant directors, and, on one occasion, the director, were switching in and out of roles. And as for A Star is Born, it is probably best remembered by the number The Man That Got Away, and for being amongst several other films under the same title. No complete copy of the film was found again, despite the 1983 restoration uncovering some production stills, audio files, and various clips, including the Lose That Long Face number. But that's another story for another day. Thank you for watching. This is Movie Musical Mania. Please like and subscribe for more content like this.